Paradigm shift, man. Big baller brands.
Hey.
Ish bala.
B-ball fitness.
Welcome, brother. Thank you so much for being on the cast.
I'm
man. This is
excited,
great.
man.
It's going to be
Yeah.
awesome. And we have with us as well JV, Justin Ventura.
doing? Oh, speaking to the mic, right?
Yes,
There we go.
yes. Please speak in the mic. We lost a big man to Memphis, Tennessee recently. We lost another JV, but we kept you, bro. So I think all in all, it was a good series of trades that took place.
That's right.
Satish Bala, man, right off the bat, we have a gift for you. But
Okay.
you're going to have to choose which gift you're going to get and in which order. So I've made this very easy for you. I've got 2 pencils over here.
Okay.
On each pencil is the name of a city.
Okay.
You pick and we'll give you a gift accordingly.
I go with the blue.
What does it say?
Scarborough.
It says Scarborough.
See?
Okay.
Hometown.
So, courtesy of our
Scarborough.
friends at the Spacing Store, here is the first gift for you. It is a bunch of Scarborough street signs.
Oh my gosh, you have no idea
Little
how excited
buttons.
I am.
Bro, I want you to open this up, and then the activity I have for you is put together the 2 street signs that are closest to where you grew up in Scarborough.
Yes. Man, so I landed in Scarborough in 1989. I will never leave. I am repping Scarborough for life. I actually have a T-shirt I made for the AC Fest last year that says Scarborough Tings.
Scarborough Tings. There we go.
And only the people from Scarborough got the joke on
Of course.
stage.
Well, this also happens to be episode 666. That was terrible.
Maybe
I
you need
spent
more
about 2
reverb in the
seconds.
back.
Yeah, that was awful. Hopefully, Kwaku can fix that in post, right?
Lawrence and Midland, baby.
Lawrence and Midland.
Repping Lawrence
Okay.
and Midland. Yes.
There you go. What
That's
was
where
life
everything
like?
started, man.
Tell us about the early days. So you transitioned from Singapore to living very close to Lawrence and Midland.
Yes. This is crazy, man. It's like
And it's all yours,
sorts-
brother.
All sorts of memories coming up. Yeah, so we left Singapore when I was 14. Thank God, the greatest decision my parents ever made was to take me to this country. And we landed in Scarborough. And I was like, what is this place? And all the brochures that you get when you're not in Canada make Scarborough looks amazing.
It was the city of tomorrow.
Right? And the
That's
pictures
how it
are
was positioned.
awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I saw pictures of like downtown, but in Scarborough's section of the brochure. So we're like, yeah, this is cool. And I'd never seen suburbia before. I come from Singapore. It's all buildings.
Yep.
We live vertical, not horizontal. So we got this house. There's a basement. There's like no neighbors around. I'm on this cold
Space,
street.
yeah.
I was like, the snow and the driveway. We fell all the time.
How's the snow?
It
That's
was
the...
horrible. So first, and we came in January. So my dad, being an engineer, was like, "Yeah, you guys should shovel the snow." And then my mom, being not an engineer from a little village, poured hot water everywhere
Oh, man.
at like
Shout
7
out-
a.m.
shout
after
out
my
to Miss
dad
Bala.
left, and then
Turned
I
straight
took
to
the spill
ice.
at 8, brother 8:04.
Slipping and sliding
It was
all
crazy,
over the place, man.
But for me, it was the most amazing thing possible because all of a sudden I came from a place where it was full of just Asians because we're Singapore and it's all Chinese folks,
Right.
And Tamil speaking South Indians are a super minority, right? And I come here and all of a sudden I'm part of this really cool tapestry of people, and I realized there's more of me, more cultural than me, that I didn't understand what Indian meant. And for me, it was incredible because all of a sudden I had a chance to like rethink who I was because I was given a certain image and I didn't like it. I didn't know I had a choice to change it.
On our mutual friend Ricardo McRae's Framing Podcast, shout out to Ricardo. I wish I saw him in Halifax
Ricardo.
when I was recently there. But you talked about suppressing your identity when you came over from Singapore because you were taught one way of being, one way of thinking, one way of living there. And when you came to Scarborough, when you came to the GTA, you felt a culture clash that made you retreat into yourself. 100%. What were those days like, and how were you feeling when you couldn't fully express yourself the way that you are now?
Well, it's frustrating because I've always been living in a inside myself and hidden because I never felt like I could be who I really wanted to be, because every time I had a moment where I was me, I was smacked, like literally, right? Like we're talking about growing up in a very Indian household. I'm the eldest of 3, and my dad's a strict engineer, and he had visions of what his first son is supposed to be, because I realized later in life after he passed away that it wasn't his fault, but he developed that vision from the way he grew up. But he didn't know how to change or be flexible because I was his way out.
You got that corporal punishment, baby.
Right? Because that's all they knew, right? That's all.
Backhand adjustment.
And for me, it was like, well, why am I getting hit every time I do something that feels natural?
Yeah.
And every time I do something that doesn't feel natural, it doesn't go right. Like, I'm not smart. I'm not this. I'm not this. But if I am being athletic or charismatic or funny guy or whatever, I got to smack. So then you tend to just suppress it because you're 8, you're 7, you're 6, you're 3. You don't know what to do. So you just sort of go, okay, maybe they're right. This is the devil in me. I can't let it out. And if I do, I'm going to have a bad life. Because everything was painted in such dramatic ways. Like, if you're like this, you're going to fail. If you're like this, you're going to be broke. If you're like, so then you're like, okay, I don't know any better.
Blindly follow it, eh?
Right? You just blindly follow it. And then I come here and I go, wait a second. These kids are getting C's, but they're playing basketball and they're celebrated and they're given freedom to explore, and nobody's like hating on them. I don't get it. And then if I go over to their homes, the dads are not punishing them. People are eating together. They get Christmas gifts. What the hell is going on?
Living like kings out here.
Yeah. So for me, Scarborough was the very first opportunity to question my belief system.
And I wonder how much of that is the product of our parents being on the defensive. So when they came over, like, think about the act of uprooting your entire life, leaving your career, leaving your networks, and then moving to a brand new place. And in the case of my parents, I'm not sure about you guys, but my parents were destitute. Like, my father was piss poor, slumdog millionaire jumping into a pile of shit. Like, he watched that movie and he's like, this is real life.
Yeah.
Like, I lived this. And so he had what I've learned now is called a scarcity mindset. So he was all about, you're going to lose things. If you're not careful, things are going to disappear. We were operating like the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy. And so I think that kind of like how you described right now affected my ability to be confident. I'm still not a naturally confident person. I think that came from living in a household and growing up where I was taught, like, hey, keep your head down, work hard, don't ask questions, just do what you're told, and things will happen for you. But that's it's a totally different reality now.
And we don't get that hindsight until much later, right? People always say, experience is a great thing, but you got to sort of get pain to get experience. And we never appreciate the pain as it happens, right? It's only good later in life. When you're experiencing it in the middle of, whatever it is at 8, 10, 12, 15, it's just shit you're going through.
There you go.
And it's only later in life when I realized, my dad was really passionate about making me a smart kid because his way out of his poverty was education. So for him, if my kids are super smart and they're doctors or engineers or accountants, I've done my job because that's the only way you've seen it.
That South Asian trinity, man, that holy trinity of careers, or immigrant trinity for that matter. Doctor, lawyer, engineer. Didn't actually know another way out.
Because that was what's popular, right? Like, you knew you're guaranteed a job.
Yeah. Looked like a noble profession because possibly the way you dressed or the perception of how much money you were making.
Exactly.
But very little understanding of the inner workings that it took to become that thing.
I have a question because I come from a little bit of different angle where my grandparents actually came from like very poor villages in Italy. And then my mom kind of faced what you guys did, but being a second generation, I was able to kind of see the shift in mindsets. Did your parents kind of, as you developed and started seeing success from what was outside of their value hierarchies, did you find it was like difficult for them to evolve their mindset along with your successes, or they were very?
Mine was very stubborn, like, because we disconnected once I figured out I could speak up, right? Because I found my own voice, and then I also found confidence that what's my worst case? You're gonna kick me out, and I'll survive because I've survived for 15 years, and I'll figure it out. And I think once they saw the confidence, they can't do anything more.
And the results, right?
Well, results are subjective, right?
Fair.
So, like I did Lazy Fest for 12 years, and the first 3 years he never showed up. But on the 4th year, he finally was like, oh, this is something interesting. Oh, you're successful now, So I carried that weight with me for a long time. I want to be successful for their sake. And then I realized I'm only hurting myself because that's a fire that's consuming me and it's not sharing to the world. But at the end of the day, looking back on my history, would I change anything? No, because all of those scars make me who I am, and I like who I am. So it's cool.
In your most recent blog post, you wrote, imagine if Jay listened to his uncle and didn't sell 1 million records. Who would Satish Bala be if he listened to his father's advice and became an engineer?
I would be Satish Balakrishnan in Chennai.
In Chennai.
With a traditional wife and a bunch of kids, like 5, 7,
Little
9.
village, man.
Yeah, like, well, I eat rice and curry every day. I'll be back home by 7, watch ZTV.
There you go, bro.
Like, yo, that's because I went and saw that life. I know what it looks like. You know, when I went back to India after a really long time, I was like, whoa, this is 1975 frozen in time. And they like it. They're cool.
Yeah,
you know,
more power to them, man.
but yeah, it's something I think about every now and then. I'm like, you know, what if we didn't leave India? What if we didn't leave Singapore? What if we didn't land in Scarborough? We landed in Calgary. I mean,
Right.
we had a 50-50 chance, man. It was Australia or Canada, and there was just enough skinhead issues in Australia in the 90s. We're like, let's just go to Canada. But I could have been in Australia, like, you know,
Easily.
So there's so many things that I think are guiding this path that I'm on. So, you know, once that mindset clicked in, I don't take anything for granted. You know, I appreciate every individual I meet.
Right.
And then, you know, makes me who I am.
That's so interesting that exact choice, that choice between Canada and Australia was the exact same choice that my father and my mother were facing about when to take, or where to take rather, this their children and their family, and they were following the diaspora. But I remember the similar dialogue happening at the time, that Australia was a very racist place and not hospitable for people that identified as South Asian. Which brings me to the next gift, because this has a lot to do with an endeavor that you created 13 years ago. Let's pretend like there's more than one pencil over here, but let's go ahead and pick this last pencil.
Hey, this is my favorite pencil.
What city? Toronto. I have for you now, again, courtesy of our friends from the Spacing Store, a coaster with an iconic sign on it.
Okay, man.
Flip it over and tell me what it says.
Dundas, my favorite stop.
Why is it your favorite stop, Mr. Bala?
Man, so much, bro. Like Ryerson, Eaton Center, meeting my wife, Young Dundas Square, where, you know, I've run Desi Fest now for 13 years. Like, it's crazy. It is. If I can get another tattoo, Dundas will be it, man.
Dundas would be it.
Yeah.
Why did you pick the Young and Dundas Square as the venue for Desi Fest? 13 years strong now.
So Desi Fest started because we had a whole bunch of young artists, and I was DJing by then, that were all making urban music with a flavor of South Asian impact to it. But we were too brown for mainstream, because they're like, we can't say your names on radio. So Flo and all these guys are like, this is cool, but I can't. So no, it's too ethnic for us. And then brown people were like, this is not Bollywood. This is, you know, this is urban music. It sounds black. We're not gonna put you. So I'm like, where do we go? So we're like, okay, May is South Asian Heritage Month, which nobody really knew.
I didn't even know that until now. Wow.
The backstory was somebody wanted Asian Heritage Month, and then some brown dude was like, oh, we should have South Asian Heritage Month. They both submitted a bill, and our government, being disorganized as it is, approved both bills. And then they realized they can't do both. So then Ontario has South Asian Heritage Month and Asian Heritage Month, and the rest of the country is just Asian Heritage Month. So we're like, this is a great moment to give them an FU sign. What if we did a big urban party as part of South Asian Heritage Month with nothing really to do with the heritage? Let's look at the branding too. So when you look at our logo, Desi Fest, the older version, we just launched a new one today, has got that Bollywood type and stuff.
Right.
Because we wanted people to think about culture differently.
It's got the little fire flare in there.
Right?
You know?
So you expect coming to a show at Young Dundas Square,
Right.
expecting a Bollywood-inspired show. And then we're like, no, this is a new culture. We got skinny jeans. We got grills. We got neck tattoos.
Bro.
We got hip-hop, R&B, reggae, pop, rock.
It's so funny because at this time, I remember the first Desi Fest I ever went to was either 2007, 2008, or 2009, one of those years. And that's one of the years that you brought out Raghav. I think you brought 2008. Perfect. So I got it right dead smack in the middle. And I didn't know who this Raghav guy was until I think I was dating this girl at the time. She put me onto Raghav. I saw this guy. I'm like, oh, this is what people are into. Like, I'm dressing wrong. I don't have the sauce, so to speak. And I remember my buddies at the time, we had this little production company, more of a fun thing that we did called No Budget Productions, NBP. Yeah. And I decided that, hey, I wanted to do a little test video of Raghav. So I think the song was Angel Eyes or something.
Yeah, it's a big track.
Dressed up like Raghav, put a little dinky camera in my room and sang. And man, that footage, I need Azim or Amir, if you're listening to this, please delete that footage, man. Maybe I might run for politics one day. That's gonna be the video that undoes everything, man. But I remember feeling exactly what you described, the sense that things were changing, and that now as a young person, as a young South Asian, as somebody identified as Desi, I now felt like I was being represented and I could see a new expression that I hadn't previously seen. And now here you are 13 years strong. What has changed? What's different about year 13?
I think
from year one.
Our message is evergreen, right? Like, we still stand for that young person who feels like they can't be themselves, right? And for me, in many ways, AC Fest is a large megaphone for my life. Like you started earlier saying, how did you feel to sort of move? If I could grab a big, huge mic and like scream into it saying, hey, look at me for who I am, I would have done it. But for me, the AC Fest was a way to do that, right? And so the message is still the same. We still support a version of our culture that still doesn't reflect the common sort of belief system. They still look at, brown kids that are into, untraditional stuff as misfits and the black sheep, which, made sense 10 years ago.
Sure, man.
But not anymore, right? And so for us, how do we continue to hone this message in? And then, we're year 13, which means I'm now talking to young musicians that met us when they were 12 or 13 or 14.
That's
and
wild.
Now coming out with music and they're 24, 25.
Jeez.
And they're telling us like, my first DC Fest was 12 years ago, bro. And I was like, one day I'm going to get on stage, and now I'm on stage. This is so dope.
Yeah.
The fact that we are now somebody's hope, it's a huge opportunity for us, right? Because this young person at 12 said one day I'm going to get on the stage without even understanding what it takes to put the stage on. We could have been gone 2 years later. And so for us, when we dig into like, why exactly did we do it? Because we're doing it for the right reason. I'll always fight for sponsorship, even if I have, no energy left. I will beg, plead, invest, do whatever it takes, because the platform is more important than the effort we put in to make it happen.
Damn, man, thank you for doing this. I mean, like, it's now really sinking in just how pivotal Daisy Fest was for me growing up, for my family, for my friends, and to see that we had this celebration that acknowledged who we were and what we brought to the city, what we brought to the country, man. I gotta ask a really awkward question of JV over here, man.
Yes,
I'm wondering now out loud, right? Like, I'm looking at this room; it's a very diverse.
What's his Indian name?
Sorry,
what is your Indian name, by the way?
My Indian name? Oh, what we came up with one at your event,
I will
didn't
not
we?
say it because this might be.
Yeah, it might be.
To people
Actually,
that
to be
sponsor
fair,
us.
most of my friends growing up were actually Sikh. I grew
There
up
you
in
go.
Woodbridge, so I can't quite relate to your guys' personal experiences, but I can relate through friends' experiences.
Well, that's the question I want to ask,
Yeah.
right? Because this is really interesting that now I'm seeing myself very represented over here. Kwaku are producers from Ghana. Like, are you seeing yourself represented, Kwaku, like in mainstream media right now? Yeah? Oh, he just gave me a thumbs up over there. That's good.
Yeah. I mean, go on the mic.
No, it's all good. Get on there, man.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of representation for, I guess, West African young people.
Right.
In Toronto through the Afro beats, a lot of different club promoters, different events. I mean, that's the gift when it comes to being from Toronto.
Yeah.
Is you have a lot of people of minority backgrounds, immigrant backgrounds who have made a name for themselves, started a business, and now they're promoting cultural events. And that's a form of giving back. So yes,
That's very interesting, right? And then so Satish, like you're
Just a small to add on to
Yeah,
that
please,
before
by
I
all means.
forget. I think it was Daisy Fest year 3, and I was still DJing and making music. And a good friend of mine, his name is Aklilu, he's African, and he was like, "Do you know that a lot of Africans love Bollywood music?" And I was like, "He's like, Shah Rukh Khan's got one of the biggest bases in Africa."
Out
And I'm
here.
like, "No way!" So then he started naming all these Indian actors, and I didn't even know them because I'm not from the culture,
Yeah.
even though I represent a version of us. And I was like, "How do you know all these people?" And then he hooked me up with Eritrean music. And man, I started DJing some like Bollywood Eritrean remixes.
Damn.
Crazy, man. Like it just gets you bopping. It's so.
And it could only happen here in Toronto, man.
Yeah, that's what I
This
was
is the
about to
place where it's
say.
gonna happen.
That it's just the whole unsiloing of different cultures too. As much as you were saying before, it allows people within their own culture to grow. It breaks down the walls between other cultures. So for someone like me to embrace other cultures and even to get a doorway in, it's no longer an all-access pass for your own culture, right? Like I'm able to explore different cultures and grow with them, learn with them, and not necessarily have to stick to just because I'm a label. I have to stick within my label, you know?
Well, this is a slightly weird question. Like, I wanted to ask you, Justin. Like, this might seem like a really, really like simple, almost obvious question, but
Best ones.
do you see yourself as white?
That's an interesting question. I mean, I could give
Justin.
I could give the generic answer that I don't see color, but I will dive into more details.
Sorry.
Well, I mean, I am Canadian. At the end of the day, I was born here. My parents were born here, and
Like you have Italian heritage, right?
I do have
So-
Italian heritage, yeah. Calabria, everyone, Cosenza, for anyone else who has the bloodline lineage, at least like me.
Like when you hear a bunch of guys like
Yeah,
us
yeah,
like
I was
talking about representation and seeing ourselves represented and celebrating our culture, like when you hear that, like is that like a relatable conversation? Are you able to identify with any part of that? Because I would imagine, based on sort of what we're seeing right now in the zeitgeist and the conversation of the day, and I spend a lot of time reading a lot of forums, and I spend a lot of time talking to people who don't look like me, people who make up the homogenous culture, mostly just straight white people, right? Yeah. Understanding the way that they think, and to them, from what I've learned in my very short time of exploring this, is that it's invisible. Like they don't actually see the things that we see. You don't actually need a Desi Fest because every celebration that isn't labeled Desi something or ethnic, insert whatever, something is a celebration of you.
Generic. Yeah, I see what you mean. So you would almost have to add like a prefix for it to be another culture besides a quote unquote white culture.
Yeah.
But no, I came from a unique situation where growing up I had friends ranging from every ethnic background, every what you call economic background. Friends group very poor, friends group very rich. So for me, I come from a traditional Toronto mixing pot, so I never really saw it. And I grew up in my household is not like it was very Italian. Again, my parents were born here. So, but I never really had that attachment to my own culture. What I did love to do is I loved exploring other cultures. I would love going over to my Indian friends' houses or my Jamaican friends' houses and just kind of seeing how I would learn so much from them, and you can kind of tie in together and learn a lot from them and make your own lessons, And
I wonder. I mean, this is a cliche Indian joke, but I wonder how many of them brought them home so they don't get beats.
Yeah, for
Here's
sure,
my
man.
white friend. Don't hit me
Don't
now.
hit me, man. Just wait
Hit
until
me
he's gone.
later when he goes home.
Man, you recently posted, Satish, on Instagram. You posted about Gully Boy.
Yeah.
What do you think about it?
Oh man, I haven't seen the movie yet, but what's fascinating is I've been following the hip hop movement in India, right?
Massive.
Because it's now unifying.
Yeah.
It's not just from the slums anymore, but like corporate India is embracing it. And again, we're very proud of the fact that we've got a platform where artists feel like, they want to be part of North America. There was a time where, the kind of work we were doing, it was only big in India, UK. Right. So if we weren't on their stages, we're kind of nobody.
Yeah, we weren't legit.
But now we get artists reaching out because North America is the next big market. So when we get somebody like a Divine come to Toronto to perform at Desi Fest,
huge,
and the next summer Gully Boys blows up, we get a piece of that. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And so I always look at what's the impact we leave, because the show is a show. It's 12 hours of music, but I can guarantee you there's a bunch of people in the audience that are pursuing a career like Divine, lost without a beacon.
Yeah.
Whether they're successful or not, we at least told them, hey, there's a stage. Get good enough to be on stage, because the discipline that will take you on stage is the same discipline that's going to move you into the next level. But now you got something to work towards. You're not just a guy in a studio making beats.
An attainable goal. Mm-hmm. It's funny because I did spend a lot of time talking with both of you in a mentor-esque fashion. And one common theme that I feel like even a lot of people my age miss is that you have to be able to set a goal. You have to aim before you shoot, right? I believe you told me that one. But so by giving these people a goal to set, entering an unknown market per se, I guess that was an original purpose of your Desi Fest too, right?
Yeah, and that's exactly what we wanted to do. And it wasn't just for the artist community, but good or bad, we wanted to give the older community a point to hate or love. Mm-hmm. Like, I still get handwritten hate mails.
Handwritten hate mail.
Handwritten.
Like old auntie
uncles,
and
just
uncle will be taking the paper
corrupting
out,
the culture,
pen, and write a note saying how I'm destroying the culture. Lick it, put a stamp on it.
What is this bullshit yo-yo honey sing?
Right? Like the effort it takes to write something down versus a tweet.
Oh, that would hurt me, bro.
Right?
If I got a handwritten.
And I was like, this is awesome, because
Send me
your
all the
grandkids,
DMs,
your kids, this is what they're doing, right? And so for us, it's hate us or love us, be exposed. And if you hate us, give me a chance to make you love me. If you love me, then contribute to the movement. I don't care if you're a donor, a sponsor, a parent, a kid. I want you to pick a side from day one. Hate me or love me. Yeah. If you hate me, I'm going to do all I can to bring you to the other side. Yeah. But I need you to pick a spot.
Yeah.
If you're indifferent, That's how we become less valuable. And I'm not going back home. I'm not planning to go to India one day or Singapore to retire. Like,
Yeah, man.
this is it, right? So then I'm fully vested in making sure everything about the culture is transparent and open. You will not be ignorant because you don't know us. You might be ignorant because you choose to hate me, but that's okay. That means that I got room to make you love me.
That's so powerful, man. And like, I truly believe that there's a meta war of attrition that's taking place between people who have felt disenfranchised, who were on the margins, people who felt like they were not accessing the world in the way that people with power had it. And I know that, we have a very diverse array of listeners over here. People who identify with extreme liberal values, people who identify with extreme conservative values. I know that all the people on the right are listening to this right now being like, Hamza's talking about power again. What's going on? But let me explain, right? Yeah. Here we are now. Last night was the Grammys. Black Panther. If you guys were watching the Grammys, how long did it take for there to be a predominant movie, a superhero film that was elevated to the stature of fine art to be recognized at the Grammys? And people are upset about that.
Yeah,
I know this has been an ongoing conversation in this podcast. Like, hey man, like this is a long battle that's taking place. Yeah. I bring that up because my mom recently watched Gully Boy, and she said something to me that floored me. I was like, whoa, I can't believe you're saying this, Mom. She's like, I watched Gully Boy, and I feel like I finally understand rap. I feel like I now understand where rap comes from. Because, man, we grew up on Bollywood, right? Yeah. We know that back in the day, Bollywood was racist when it came to their depiction of rap. There was an imitation of what they thought rap sounded like, what they thought rap looked like. It was almost used for comedic effect. Yeah. And then came Rishi Rish and Juggy D and Bohemia and these initial rappers. And now here we are at a place where we're seeing rap emerge from the slums, emerge from people who have been destitute, who've been struggling to set their goal and then pursue it. And now they're creating music that's expressive in that way and is really reaching the hearts and souls of people. So I want to end this segment by, again, giving you a shout out because you don't know how many people you have impacted. Like you said, some people might love it, some people might hate it, but it's a war of attrition. The people who are hating it now, give them a few years. If it doesn't work on them, their children, their grandchildren. My dad was that guy, bro. Your dad was that guy.
He hated it 3 years, and he fell in love because he saw the love, right? And so, for me, it's
coming from a good place, man.
Yeah, and because they don't understand, and that's what I've learned in trying to serve a community. There's going to be a period where they just don't understand you, and you choose to either stop or you just keep going until the tide comes over, you know what I mean? And it took us 6-7 years to find that connection. It took me 3 years to convince my dad to appreciate it. You know what I mean? And so I think anybody who's out doing the kind of work that I'm doing, and hopefully I get to continue doing it, you gotta stick in it, man. You gotta grind it out. Short-term wins are nothing. It's the long-term game, 100%.
I just want to say something before we move on, just complimenting on Hamza's point where he said the meta game. As what you were saying before, I think you gotta risk offending people if you want to make a big change. If you're not offending people, if someone's not mad, you're not doing it right, and if everyone's happy, then most likely you're not gonna be happy. Like on the meta scheme of things, whether it's culture, whether it's music, whether it's business, if you're not offending people, you're not making a big enough change. Someone's gonna get mad at you.
Yeah, and you probably identify with that as a marketer. Like you've spent most of your life in marketing, communications, branding, telling stories. The worst thing that could happen, and I think you might agree with this, is that nobody reacts. Yeah. There's no reaction whatsoever. I'd rather have everybody hate it or everybody love it.
100%.
Versus, oh, it showed up, no one cares about it. That's basically the death. The death knell when it comes to
that is the death. Because now a whole bunch of smart people that put thought into this idea got zero reaction.
Which is terrifying because I'm thinking about this. I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent, but like right now in the news, you're seeing a lot of controversy come out about really offensive fashion, like the nooses and Gucci blackface and all that. Part of me as a marketer, I know that it's intentional.
Yeah.
But it's hard for me to talk about it because I'm like, how do I say this while creating a compelling reason for why this is an effective marketing strategy? Because I think I understand it. Yeah. Why this is an effective marketing strategy. Is it wrong? Is it terrible? Fuck yeah. I wish they never did it. It's absolutely horrible. Like there's the bottom rung in hell is reserved for the people that were behind this particular marketing strategy. But it works.
But the numbers don't lie.
I hate to say it, it works, man. Yeah. It's going to embolden people who are already going to buy it more.
Well, and plus, who's their base? At the end of the day, like Trump taught us, right? You can still win with the wrong base. Yeah. And the wrong base for us, the right base for him, right? And so, when you look at what Gucci did, yes, they're targeted a very specific offensive community, but maybe they don't look at them as the base.
Yeah.
And the people that agree with them, how did sales impact them?
Racist high fashion.
Right. And I think that's a scary part about just news in general, where we're spending more time and creativity creating stuff that creates a bad reaction.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
I don't know if you on Snapchat, like I've had up to here with Snapchat's advertising. If you go through your story feed, it's the most clickbait captions ever. It's,
yeah.
it's like sex, violence, DIY stuff for some reason that's really in, and like just like they target your most primitive instincts because there's so much out there. They want the most primitive reactions because they just want that click, right?
And they get it.
Yeah.
That's the scary part.
It sucks that it works. Like, are we that are we that simple minded that these really simple tactics work?
I don't know, man. What do you think?
Well, I remember an old quote from Socrates, and he says, the best way to judge humanity is how we entertain ourselves.
Oh no, that's
So-
not good.
Every now and then that reminds me of like, what is entertainment today for me,
Yeah.
and what does it say about us?
Damn.
6
Buzz TV, man, watching us
man.
style on them. Bro, before this could be a whole other podcast where we explore sort of what's going on in the world right now and this polarization. I do want to have that conversation at some point, and I know that you guys will be back. This is the first of many appearances.
Yeah, this
we're
is
gonna
fun.
we're gonna be doing this for a very long time, and so we'll have time to talk about that. I want to bring the spotlight back on you, Satish, and talk about what it took for you to be in this game for this long, because you've got longevity in the game. From all the guests that we've had here, you can run laps around us. Like your career, the 20 plus years that you've spent applying yourself on multiple ventures can engulf several of our guests combined in terms of just years alone. So I want to spend the next probably half an hour reverse engineering how you spend your time, your energy, your attention, with a focus on how specifically you manage it and how you optimize it.
Cool.
And JV, man, if I'm missing anything in here, jump right in,
Oh
brother.
yeah, me and Stish have gone into depth about this.
I know. I wish I was like a fly on the wall for some of these gym conversations.
Yeah.
Anytime, man. Anytime.
Well, let's start with it. Let's start with time then. Walk us through your morning routine, man. What do the first 2 hours of Satish Bala's day typically look like?
Okay, so putting into context, I'm not running a company right now, right? So today is a little bit different because one of the reasons I sold the company was to focus on my own personal health and mental health and all this stuff, which we can get into another time. But my first 2 hours are about the kids and health. And so ever since I sold the company, I think I've 99% of the time I'm up, breakfast with them, and take them to school. And that little bit of connection is really important for me because I didn't do that. My daughter is 11, and for the first 5-6 years, I saw her maybe half an hour a day.
Oh, wow.
Because by the time she's up to school, I'm out the door already, or I'm sleeping because I was up till 3 a.m. working, and I'll see her for half an hour, maybe an hour. My excuse was she's young, she's only 3 or 4 or 5, she's not going to miss me. Of course they do, right? And I realized that. Now I have a son, 5 years old, so I'm like, nah, I want to make sure. So him and I have a little routine. Like, we make fun of the girls and we leave the car, and then we walk across and we like talk, and we take the long path around, and like all of it is about 5 minutes. But it's amazing 5 minutes, right? So that's really important for me. And then, I try to get my workouts in first. I realize I've spent 25 years making money as my primary focus, and awesome, lost some, made some, all sorts of good stuff. But I've suffered a lot of health issues. Almost, was diagnosed with cancer and all sorts of stuff because of the habits we create, right? But I can't fault it because my habits were developed around making money.
Right.
And I realized I can't focus on making money the way I was and also care about health. So then I reverse engineer now to go, nothing happens until I get a workout in. Even if it's 20 minutes on the treadmill or an hour and a half at the gym, until I'm physically good, the world doesn't get a piece of me.
I have a.
Wow.
You want to go ahead? On
No,
this one?
you go ahead.
Well,
my mind is spinning. Right
Because both of you have some years on me. Take it with a grain of salt. I just
now.
want to
See
say.
the gray in the beard. Man? It's coming out.
I just want to get it from your guys' opinion because both of you have definitely told me that physical health is like you cannot overlook that. I mean, both of you have gone through issues that I haven't. But going back to talk to the viewers my age, would you ever suggest making it a goal to prioritize any sort of business outcome over personal health, or is personal health that one variable that does not change, physical fitness, or is there any rationale for leaving it in the background?
Great question.
So let me use a different analogy, right? Because your young people probably are into cars more than I am at my age. Let's assume you're into cars, okay? Imagine knowing you get one car in your life, okay? And you're going to beat the shit out of it every single day without caring for it. And you need the car. You need to get to school, you need to get to work, you need to go on a date, you need to go groceries. So it's not like you can't use the car, but you have to use it so much where you don't take care of it, right? So for me, my body is the same. At the end of the day, all of the greatest things I can do in life, I can only do because I'm able to do it in my life, right? And so if I don't start the day consciously saying, hey, how do I protect my mind and my body? Because when it's at its best, everything I touch, everybody I experience, everything I want to do is a really good chance of success. But it all starts with me first, which is a very new mindset for me. Because in the past, it was like, get up and the world gets me first. Emails, clients, staff, I'll be the first one there. I'll skip lunch because it was a different focus. But I realized also all those skills can leave you. Clients can leave me. My best staff can move on. I won't make the money. I'll make a lot of money. But I get this body and that's it, man. When this thing breaks down, I don't care how rich I am or fucked. You know, and when I had that cancer scare, because I've always told myself, as long as I can work, I will work, right? So even if I'm not feeling like I'm getting up today, I'll still lie in bed, work away. But when I had that cancer scare and the operation didn't go well and all this stuff, it was the first time where I had no choice and I cannot work. Like, I couldn't work because I was drugged up and da-da-da. And it was a weird feeling to go, okay, if I cannot work anymore and this body fails, what kind of life would I live? Wow. And that's when I was like, boom, none of this shit matters. It's good, but it's not as important as this body that I have for whatever years that I have. And so I fundamentally shifted it. And funny enough, you know, the last 12 months, I've made more money with this new focus than I did in my last 20 years. Incredible. I would have never imagined I can say it out loud because I know the effort I put into building my businesses. On paper, I made more money in 2018 for myself than I did in the last 12 years.
And that's because you activated the Pareto principle, which is the 20% that you showed up for, you were operating at 100%.
Yeah, exactly. Because you're clearer, you make better decisions, you make the right decisions.
You make rational, not because I find when you're too
reactive. Like,
exactly to the words out of my mouth. And I find it's easy to get into this confirmation bias mindset where it's like, oh, it's going to pay off in the long term. It's going to pay off in the long term. It's going to pay off in the long term. Like hustle.
You see a small little glimpse, and you're like, okay, this is it. This is momentum, but it's not momentum.
Because
we
talked about this in my event where so many people, when you are extrinsically focused, let's say on money or like very external values, you forget the in betweenness. You know, like you're the sum of all the little victories. Your big victories are some of your small victories. When you get too externally focused, you put all the weight on that one big victory, and suddenly all these small victories, they hold less merit in your brain, and you just start becoming this negative mindset because all these small victories don't make you happy. Only big ones do. But when you become happy with the small ones...
Even to sort of challenge that a little bit, we don't know what's small and what's big. You know?
Relative.
We don't, right? Like, you know, I had one brief conversation with my uncle in India. And I've never really spoken to him before then. I went to, you know, put my dad's ashes in India, whatever. And I remember hanging out and I'm like, I don't know anybody in my history. Was I adopted? Like, why am I like this? Like, I got 1,000 ideas. I don't know how to make decisions. I remember he looked at me, man, old dude, like just old school. And he was like, Tish, the reality is none of us get 2 days. We all get 1 day. And every decision is just a decision. We do not have the mental capacity to understand what's a big decision, what's a good decision, what's a bad. So all you could do in life is take care of yourself and give you the chance to make the best decision possible every time.
I love that, man. And that reminds me of another quote that I heard from one of my mentors that he said, you can't always make the right decision, but you can make decisions and then make them right.
That's it.
And so my whole life, I've just been making bad decision after bad decision, but with much more precision as I get older and wiser. One of the best decisions I ever made recently was prioritizing my health. Like today I had a shitty workout. I went in there, I phoned it in. I'm not going to lie. I climbed the treadmill for 15 minutes. I did a few flimsy weights, but for me, it was less about the physical and more about the mental. I knew that I had to show up and do this and that tomorrow I could wake up again, feel better about it and do it. And so the gym never moves in my calendar and you guys have non-negotiables in yours. What are some other things in your calendar that don't move for anyone no matter what?
Dinner with family.
Dinner with
the big
family.
thing
That's
for
every
me.
night?
Yeah. So, as often as I can, unless it's something like this, I don't miss it. And also just alone time. I've undervalued alone time for most of my career because I'm always surrounded by people. I give energy out, right? And so it's only, the last 5-6 years where I realized, okay, having alone time to do nothing, sit and read, daydream, just watch an hour of YouTube for no
Sure,
reason.
man, yeah.
It's important.
Guilt-free fun, yeah.
Right? Just to let it go. And so I try to find at least 20 to 30 minutes every day to just zoned out, and I couldn't do it. So one of the things I did was got rid of my car. So I only Uber now because I know that 20-minute Uber drive, I got no distractions. I turn my phone off. I just stare. I engage in a
You
conversation.
can't wait for those Tesla self-driving cars, eh?
Hey, man, I don't want that either. I want somebody to drive so I know it's cool and I can have a conversation and just chill.
I love that, man. I've been thinking about like the community that listens to this podcast and like how do we personify this community? Like who listens to this? Yeah. And I know a few people, like a majority of the people I don't actually know who listen to this. I look at the stats, I'm like, I don't even know that many people. But the few that I do know, I would describe them as like vigilantes, as bandits, as robbers, as thieves. And what they're stealing is they're stealing back their time. They're stealing back the energy. They're stealing back the attention. They gave people energy. They gave people time. They gave people their attention. Never got any of it back. And so I love that you've harped on this idea of switching over to an Uber so you can get that time back that you lost. Like what a simple switch you can make with enough permission space in your life to get that time back that you were losing because you were listening to what the fuck were you listening to Roz and Mocha in the morning? How much can you listen to Roz and Mocha in the morning, man?
And it's stress. Like, I think we underestimate the amount of stress you go through just driving for 20 minutes, right? And so when you eliminate that, and financially it's affordable now.
Yeah.
Like, it's actually cheaper to take Uber than own a car, unless you're doing a lot of big travels or whatever.
Sure.
But 90% of us
You don't worry about maintenance or gas or parking or any of that, man.
So
It's fantastic.
So getting time back has been a big focus for me. And so, if I could segment my sort of hours into 3 big chunks, is like my health, my family, and then in the middle is whatever I think I want to accomplish. And so
those are your heat maps, right?
Right.
Okay.
So some days is money focused.
Yeah.
Some days is personal growth focused. So I'm working on my book and all sorts of fun stuff. And then some days is just me mentoring and giving. Like I spent 2 days at the Zone just reacting to other people's needs. And I got
talking to schmucks like me.
So speaking of schmucks like JB, right? When this guy enters your life, you're a busy guy. You've got a lot going on in your life. How do you decide that Justin's now going to be a priority and that we're going to engage in mentorship? What kind of tools do you use to organize your time? Like how do you, where does the visualization of Satish's time exist right now?
So right now, when I look at my 7 days, at least 2 of those days are dedicated to just serving, right?
What do you mean by that?
What I mean is, right now, I'm at the Zone 9 to 5 for 2 days.
Ryerson Science.
Right, Science Discovery Zone. And I know anybody who wants to talk to me, get some mentoring, get some help, they know I'm in the building from 9 to 5.
Wow.
And I have nothing to do on those days. I don't book any of the meetings. Justin's not in between my other stuff. My whole day is cleared. And if nobody shows up, that's cool.
Yeah.
If 20 of them
Still get the bag, man.
Right? At the end of the day. So that's me sort of going, these 2 days are just giving.
Yeah.
And then I've got days where, I've invested in some companies, so I got to play a role in it. There's Daisy Fest. And so, I've got at least 2 to 3 hours every day where that's my productive time. I feel like I'm accomplishing a goal. Because when you're spending time with family, it's not really you're not on a goal to accomplish something. You're just being present, right? So I can't really measure that beyond just being there and hanging out with the kids and my wife.
Gotcha.
Health is, I'm 44. I'm not, on a mission to get a 6-pack, and I'm not entering UFC next month. I just want the routine of thinking about me first in the mornings. And like you, some days it's in 20 minutes on the treadmill and I'm out.
Yeah.
But I like the fact that even on those days, I put myself first.
Yes.
And that's all it is for me. The gym is not. I hate the gym, to be honest. I hate everything about the gym.
I can't relate.
I don't understand why anybody wants to lift weights. Like it's just I don't want it. But it's the only thing I know will give me the discipline to put me first.
Amen. And that brings us to the second part of this, which is about energy. And so, this next question has I think about this a lot because the older I get, the more sleep I need. It's kind of weird. Like there was this place in my life where I'm a baby and I'm sleeping all the time. Then I become a young teenager, then a young adult, and I sleep less and less and less. And now I'm transitioning into my 30s. And I'm finding that if I don't get a nice 7 to 8 hours, it's a wrap. The day is a total waste. So at 44, man, how many hours of sleep do you need each night? Help us prepare for when we reach your youthful age.
I can't do more than 4 hours.
More than 4?
Blew my mind too.
What are
Four
you
is
talking
top
about,
5.
man? I don't believe that
Yeah,
for a second. You
yeah.
get 4 hours of sleep a night?
Yeah. When I first sold the company, my whole thing was like, I get to sleep and da-da-da. I can't, man.
Physically can't sleep?
I just, what I've realized is...
you have sleep apnea? What's going on?
I know how to relax. I just don't know how to fall asleep. So when I went through all the testing and this and that, they're like, oh, yeah, you just have to do meditation and this and that to fall asleep. I don't have any problems relaxing. I just don't know how to fall asleep until I'm extremely tired.
Oh.
And it's a weird thing because from 18, I've put in 18-hour days willingly.
Because you were working the clubs, you were DJing, you were promoting as well. And so
My first company was here.
your
right?
circadian rhythm was thrown off. Kind of
Right.
like Kareem, who doesn't sleep at all as well.
So for me, and it wasn't like, oh, I hate what I'm doing, I wish I could sleep. I couldn't wait to get up in the morning. So I stayed up as late as I can so I can wake up as early as possible because I was on a fucking mission. Like, I knew what I was going to do.
Yeah.
So I'm like, why am I wasting time sleeping? You know what I mean?
So for the 4 and 5 hours that you do get, like, how do you make the most of that? Like, what kind of things do you put in place? Like, how do you tire yourself out? Do you have any pre-sleep rituals that help you get a quality 4 or 5?
I started to read, and I used to listen to a lot of podcasts, but I realized reading makes me more tired. I also hate the act of reading because I just want to consume content and go.
Yeah.
So it slows me down a little, which is
Yeah.
great. And then I listen to music. I'm back to like, just my classical tumble music stuff, things that just like mellow you down.
For sure, man.
And then no matter what, man, like around 2 o'clock is when my body eventually shuts down. And then by 6:30ish, 7, I'm like, let's go. Even if I have nothing in my calendar, I'm like, let's go.
There you go,
which is
man.
great because I'm up, the kids are up, whatever, right?
Are you you an extrovert?
I don't know. I don't know because I know I have both.
If
So,
you had to guess, what is he?
I think I'm
A selective extrovert.
What do you a selective extrovert? So he switches between? Like most of the time he's an
When you get him going, he's an extrovert, and when he's in his element, for sure.
You know,
but you don't have to be the center of attention. That's what I'm saying. When you need to be, you are, but you don't have to be. That's what I got.
Yeah, I battled with it because I've first 15 years of my life, I was trained to be an introvert.
Yes, same.
So
yeah.
I spent the rest of my life saying, well, what would be the opposite look like? And then I've taken steps through method and like self-hacking to
Yeah.
figure out a new version. So I don't know which, sometimes I naturally just get into an introverted mode if I feel overwhelmed,
Yeah.
right? If I'm a speaker in a panel with like super speakers, I'm like, oh shit, I'm the little kid in the corner. And then I can rock the crowd at Daisy Fest, hands down, 150,000 people, I don't care.
Hey, you had me fooled in 2008, man. I'm like, who is this guy?
So I think it's less about introvert or extrovert. It's what version of me is the best for that situation.
I want to touch upon that point
please.
quickly. Sorry, because this,
please.
if all the fire wisdom you shone upon me, I think the one that it took a while to click, but coming on to the topic of mentorship, if we're going to brush upon that quickly, is it's funny because I'm a mechatronics engineering student. Why am I surrounded by marketer slash web developer slash music host slash slash
Nobody's ever
right?
called me a
Serial
web developer
entrepreneur,
for the
yeah.
record.
But
WordPress.
it's because you've taught me the value of being able. So a lot of people set goals of what to do, but sometimes the current version of yourself is not able to do that. So in your current function of your mind frame right now, I am not able to do, let's say, get 4 hours of sleep tonight. But you don't set the goal saying, I'm going to get 4 hours of sleep tonight, or I'm going to make $1 million. You say, I'm going to become the version of myself who making $1 million is easy. I'm going to become the version of myself, self-hacking, personal development, whatever floats your boat. What we're talking about that is become the version of yourself that can do these things. Don't do these things as a current version of yourself. And then it comes into a meta game where it's like, well, if you got to become the version of yourself that achieves these goals, then the best mind frame to have is become the version of yourself, wait for it, that is good at becoming those other versions of yourself, if we can follow that, right? But I know, it's a rabbit hole
Inception,
of
right?
abstractions,
Inception
but
of versions of yourself, man.
that is
I
one
follow
thing
you.
I've...
It makes
yeah,
sense. It makes sense.
it does make sense, but that's the thing about my take on mentorship. It's not about them telling you what to do. It's about them teaching you how to become the person that can get these things done, and them teaching you how to understand what things to get done.
This is so crazy, man, because like I'm looking at Satish right now. This is the first time we've ever actually talked. Like we were talking for the first time on a podcast. And I remember when I was coming up and I was looking around me and seeing who it is that I could model myself after. There was a lot of people, man. I'll give them credit right now. There was Bhupesh Shah. There was another Satish Kanwar. There was Dave Basu. There was Divyan Selvadurai. And there was Rohit Bhargava. What's interesting, though, is like they were all inspirational to me, but they had different walks of life. Like, you know, they were working on different things. When I think about congruence with alignment in terms of who I am, the work that I do, the attitudes that I have, background, almost similar relationships with our fathers. We got daddy issues. I look at you and I'm like, this is so weird that like in 10 years, in 15 years, I'm going to become you.
Man.
And it's crazy because you're doing this right now, and I'm looking at you from across the table thinking to myself, oh, man, life's going to be great, buddy. Like, don't stress out right now. If Satish can do it, you can do it too, man. Just follow the blueprint. And I think it's so amazing that you're so generous with your time and your wisdom right now, you know, sharing it with us, sharing it with the Ryerson Science Zone over there, sharing it with him on a regular basis. I hope that we'll connect after this as well. I mean, this is incredible, man. Bringing it back to the last piece of this performance point segment, let's talk about attention a little bit. Yeah. When it comes to notifications on your phone, man, you talked about waking up, and once upon a time it was email and social media and everything, and the world has Satish. How do you now decide, with all the multiple priorities you have going on, what's urgent and what's important?
So for me, the work that I do, I'm very selective with the people now, because I have a chance to now choose the kind of work I want to do, right? In some ways, and the partners and et cetera. And so, finding the right partners who depend on me for a certain skill, but I'm not the one driving the ship. You know, I have no real interest in being the CEO and being the face and all this stuff anymore. Because I want to play a supporting role. I want to be the point guard passing you the ball. You be the center. You
Mark
be
Gasol.
Right? I'm good. Like, it's cool. And so, you know, finding the right partners allows me to get the breathing room to be effective, but not drive the ship. When I'm not driving it, I don't need to be involved in everything. Gotcha. So my partners, you know, they give me great freedom to be who I am. When it comes to my music stuff, I've now realized how to balance, because, you know, we get anywhere between 200 to 300 auditions every year. Wow. And we can only have 23 people on spreadsheet. So I've been lucky enough to build out a team now that helps sort of filter through some of this stuff, so that I get to, you know, look at, you know, our options versus being the guy looking at everything. And I think, you know, mainly giving up the idea that I am the center of the world helped. Because for the last 20 years, it's been like, I'm in the middle and everything's connected to me. And if I wasn't on, I'm like, I'm not that important in the scale of the universe. I play a role. Yeah. And that role can either benefit me only or me and a whole bunch of people. And so I'm cool with it. So, you know, like Instagram, for example, I don't have notifications turned on. So unless I go in and look at what's going on, I don't know, right? Yeah. Twitter, I don't turn notifications on. Facebook. So anything that is something I don't need to be on anymore, I have it, but I don't check it. Even my emails, I've turned notifications on. So unless I want to check it, because I realize if it's that urgent, you'll call me. If it's not that urgent, I'll catch up.
I read an article today, I think it was from Ryan Holiday, who said that we're gonna look 10 to 15 years from now, we're gonna look back at 13-year-old kids holding a cell phone the way that we look at 13-year-old kids smoking a pack of cigarettes. Yeah. It's going to be a real problem, man. Like, I'm seeing the signs are everywhere. There's no shortage of signs around us that it's causing all kinds of problems. And if it's causing problems for us, like those of us who are further along in our understanding of ourselves, and we have like we have the situational awareness to know when it's affecting our relationships and whatnot. Yeah. What is it doing to somebody who's going through the formative stages of their life, who can't actually distinguish between, is this harming me or is this not? It just is for them, right?
Yeah. Wow. And then the scary part is, if this is a global thing, then is this the new thing? You know, like I used to rock 3-pagers back in the day, right? Like
3-pagers,
oceans and clubs and all this stuff. Bro. And I was like, yeah, I got 3-pagers, and I got the smartphone, and you know, but my generation, we liked this tech, but we knew how to shut it off. Yeah. But I'm like, yo, if you're my daughter at 11 and my son at 5, you embrace it differently because you connect differently, right? some of my co-founders are, 23, 25 on some of the new ventures, and they do not like to call people. It's
Yeah,
a
it's weird.
text, and
Text, yeah.
wait for the check sign that is delivered.
Seen.
And then, because they're like, what do I have to call? I know he read it. I'm like, why don't you just call, And so I think people will always find a way to integrate tech into the normal day that makes their life and their situation at that time. If we try to future forecast, we can't understand it enough to appreciate it.
Right.
But if that is a norm for my kids to have a phone and a chip in their head and connected in a digital world, because that's their world.
Yeah.
I'm too old to figure that out, man. I'm still waiting for the self-lacing boots that was promised in Back to the Future.
Yo, we got to get a picture of the Anta,
Yeah.
the Clay Thompson Antas after. This guy walked in so fresh, man. Sorry about that.
I want to say a point on the social media thing. I think I interpreted your question a bit differently. And a lot of my opinions on this social media came from your book, Bruno Campbell, for anyone who hasn't read it. And Bailey, I know you're really close with her, her TED Talk on social media. And it's just this fact that I think for the kids' formative stage, like I even saw when I was in high school, the students maybe 2-3 years younger than me, how much their life revolved around their acceptance online more than in person. It's like you were valued by your Instagram followers, your ratio, how many likes you get, like that. Your self-worth was digital. It's not in person. That's what, and but especially in the formative stages, like I'm kind of blessed that social media kind of came in when I was in my early mid-teens, but I can't even imagine that like 8,
No, but I
10,
think in our days, it wasn't a digital social media, but we, like getting into the basketball club gave me a certain clout.
The
And guys that
dynamics
did and
existed
that
in
didn't,
person,
right?
right?
Like,
fair.
when I was DJing, for example, if you weren't on my guest list, it was a different experience than when you waited in line. I think as society, we always find these ways to create these smaller tribes, right? And I think there's a healthy way to do it, and there's an addictive, destructive way to do it. And I laugh when I see young people dropping $1,000 on bottles nowadays.
What are you doing?
That is destructive, right?
Or their entire paycheck
Cockroach is
on a
shaking
Gucci
his
belt.
head right now. He's like, Chris bottle sender. Check, pick her up.
So I think it's relative, and we got to take it in context to the time period.
Yeah. Damn, bro. Right before we got on air, we talked about operating from a place of anger, and you talked about how for a large part of your career, you were an angry guy. Competitive, cutthroat. I mean, you were out for blood. Now you seem to be way calmer. Like, I can't even picture what that version of Satish looked like. I would be very scared of that version of Satish, man. Like, you seem to have found bliss, man. I'm so happy for you right now. How do you now deal with the chatter and the criticism of other people who don't have your best interest? Like, how do you drown out or harness that noise and stay focused on the path?
It's a very sort of cliche answer, but the year that I found out I had cancer was the year I started this project to just vlog every day. And it was really just to get, my life captured, and I wanted to be a YouTube star, blah, blah, blah. But what I didn't realize was that was a year where I was going to document some of my most intimate moments at the doctor, knowing I got a tumor and all this stuff. And my wife shot the episode where like I'm on the bed in the hospital, and I just signed a release saying they're gonna put me under, but there's a chance that I might not wake up again. Wow. And I remember like she had the camera, and I was saying like peace out to myself, knowing I don't know if I'm gonna do a vlog tomorrow.
You have kids at this point?
Yeah.
Wow. Mother
Right.
flowers.
So I was like, man, like I'm saying peace out to myself. I know there's a 1% chance that I might not wake up, but it's still a 1% chance that I had to sign for on a government document that said, hey, if I die, I can't
sue the government.
So since then, nothing's really bothered me, man, because all the stuff is just stuff. I made it a point to accumulate it.
Yeah, man.
I make it a point to pick battles, and so I could choose to be happy. I could choose to ignore. I could choose to say, I can convert your love to action. I can convert your hate to love. Like it's just all within us. We just had to get to a place where we can comfortably say none of this matters. And if we can truly treat people the way we want to be treated, then that's a real legacy we can leave behind.
It's remarkable how clarifying and almost purifying the prospect of death is.
Yeah.
And it's around us all the time. I mean, I was raised Muslim, and we would have to confront death every single day in our prayers. Like, it was part of the ritual of the prayer, where you would say things in Arabic that would remind yourself that you're mortal all the time. And I was too young to appreciate it back then. But now when I think about it, now when I pray, I'm like, oh, that's super interesting that I woke up today feeling like goddamn Superman. But now I remind myself that I'm just like a bag of flesh and blood, man. That's all I really
Well, it's funny, man. Like,
brittle bone.
I think I started earlier by saying I didn't really know my dad because we've been fighting for
Yeah.
a long time. And I remember we passed away. My brother and my sister were like, well, we need to organize a funeral and all this stuff. And I didn't really know much about him. And we went, and they had the big room, but not the small room. We wanted the small room. There were like maybe 20, 30 people come out. And he's like, well, I'll give you the big room for the small room price. And the day happened at the funeral, the viewing, where even the big room wasn't big enough. Like, there was hundreds of people there, and 90% of them I've never seen.
Wow.
But they all had a personal story of how he's helped them, what he's done to impact them, immigrants, where he loaned them money, all the stuff that we've never had exposure to. And I think I decided at that moment, where whether it's Daisy Fest, Blue Band, all this stuff, those are things that represent me, but they're not me. And one day when it's not my time to go, I want my kids in a room where everybody that's in there is like, your dad was a great guy for this. Not because I was a CEO or I was a host or an MC, but I genuinely just happened to be in a position to help as many people as I can before it's my time to go.
Jeez, the goal isn't to live forever. The goal is to create something that will. And brother, you've created something, many things that will live on long after you've gone. I mean, are you scared by the prospect that you might be looking up from heaven, seeing Daisy Fest 87?
Hey.
You know, it's going to happen. They're going to carry on the tradition. It's not going to stop after 13, bro.
No, my wife says she'll put a little statue on the square. It's not a big one, but like a little 3D one. So 3D I will have a statue at the square. But hey, man, like, you know, it's a blessing. You know, every year I'm reminded of my beginnings, and you know, it's the anger was important.
Yes.
But a few important things happened that allowed the anger to dissipate, and I was able to fill that space with purpose. And I think, you know, meeting Justin and now hanging out with you guys and sharing this story, all of it has a bigger purpose that I don't know yet. But I'm just making a decision to share, and then I'll make another decision, and then we'll just go until it's my time.
Brother, my mind is racing, man. I'm blanking here on questions, man.
Well, the thing, what you said about, for those of us who haven't experienced the deathbed, sometimes it's easy to take things as words, but it's hard to internalize them and really assimilate them and truly appreciate them. Like, as you're saying, when you're on your deathbed, when you're signing your release paper that says you might be on your deathbed, that overwhelming feeling of acceptance is probably a big factor in what changed your outlook on your life, right? But because I know you have, an article that says, if you want to start giving a better perspective on your life, write your eulogy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I did it. It was an amazing exercise because it really puts into perspective what's important, right? So is that something else you'd recommend? So, like, how do you recommend those of us who haven't gone through those experiences, should we be chasing experiences that kind of put us on the edge a bit? I'm not saying necessarily adrenaline junkies, putting ourselves out there more, or like
how do you be mindful of the end?
Yeah, I think you know, don't think about it from the end game. You know, the generation that you guys have immense opportunities and possibilities, and I think you don't appreciate that as much, right? So I challenge all the young people that would listen to this to say, start with the simple question of, you know, why am I doing the things I'm doing? And a lot of us can't answer that question. Something as simple as like, why do you want to be an engineer? Why do you want to be a singer? Why do you want to do anything? And if you can purposefully architect your business, that is already a win, because you don't need to experience, you know, quote unquote death to figure shit out. You're not being taught to ask the right questions to set you up. I don't want anybody to go through what I went through. I don't want anybody to ever have to say, hey, you know, what if I don't wake up again? But I do want everybody to start the day off with, why am I doing the things I'm doing? And if what I'm doing is not making me happy, or it's on a purposeful journey, stop right away. Like, send an email to quit. Don't show up at that job. Like, do whatever it takes, because the time that you have becomes much longer when you're working on purpose. So don't worry about the death stuff, man. That's happened to be my world. But you as a young person, start every day with, hey, man, I always tell everybody that I meet, the most honest moments you have is when you're brushing your teeth. Because it's you in a mirror. No bullshit, no internet, no fancy stories that we externalize, right? It's just you.
It's that tube of Colgate, man.
And it's a toothbrush, man. So
B.
if in those 2 minutes, and you got to brush your teeth for 2 minutes at least, you could be honest with yourself and look at yourself in the mirror and go, hey, I'm at the best place I want to be, or I'm on the way to the best place I want to be. Great. If it's not one of those two, stop and do something about it.
Damn.
It's funny, the whole mirror stuff.
This episode is not sponsored by Colgate.
That whole
Team Crest out here.
Oh, Marcus Ray, that was a person. That whole physically looking at yourself in the mirror as a focal point in a sense of your mindfulness of your own personal journey. It's come up in a lot of different things. Like this one guy I know, his guy Marcus Ray, shout out, met him on the weekend in Montreal. Amazing speaker. He says some of his clients that he helps personally develop, one of the main things, every morning they start the mirror, they look themselves in the face and they say, you're going to crush it today, or you're going to do it today. That looking at yourself externally, it was, I remember at one point I hit in my life when I kind of had my head to the grindstone, was kind of absorbed into my work, and you just don't notice it passively, but every time I passed the mirror, I wasn't really looking at myself, I was looking at my reflection. And then when I kind of started, meeting people like you guys who really helped me see the world in a better light and putting myself before my external goals, one day I just walked by the mirror, I looked and I smiled. I'm like, man, I do not remember the last time I looked in the mirror and I smiled. It's usually just kind of like a glass, you look bad, but
I'm not good enough or whatever.
Yeah, I'm not good enough, exactly, but that is almost like a physical manifestation of your mental state by looking yourself in the mirror and smiling. It's like, I love myself. I like that guy in the mirror. That guy in the mirror is going to crush it,
Yeah.
And it's funny how I've heard that whole mirror thing come up on different
Powerful
people.
moment.
Yeah.
I mean, people talk about social media as this fake world, right? Okay, let's agree that it's a fake world. Well, then how do you connect with the real world? Because from the day you're born, you're being fed something. I look at my little kids and I'm like, yeah, at 4, I'm telling my son what his world is supposed to be like. At 10 or 11, I'm trying to manipulate what my daughter's world is supposed to be like. And yes, I am manipulating because I know what every, father thinks about when you have a daughter, And for the better part of my career, I was always a challenger, meaning, when I ran my agency, I was the only brown CEO in a Caucasian-dominated world.
Pioneer in many
right?
ways.
Let alone the fact that I was a computer scientist without any creative background. But I knew I was a storyteller, but I didn't realize it's possible to get paid to do it. And so you tell yourself the story of who you are before you're that person, right? I am this guy. I'm loud and I'm an extrovert and I can crush it and I'm a creative director. I don't believe it yet. But I tell my that shit over and over and over for those 2 minutes every single day to give me that confidence to go into a boardroom and pitch Cadillac Fairview and win 23 properties.
Yeah.
Out of nowhere. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But then at some point, you go, well, what's the real story?
Yeah.
You got to get back to zero, right?
Yeah.
And so, if you could start with that place of zero from day one, at 20, at 19, at 18, imagine that version. Versus the version I had to do, which is I had a version that I didn't like, and I had to spend most of my time, probably like you, reconstructing that version. That was more exhausting.
It's funny you mentioned Cadillac Fairview because I had the pleasure of sitting down with Blake Hutchinson. Very, very interesting man. But he said the same thing in a different way where it's imagining yourself in that position. Like he accredits a lot of his success to his affirmations. Like he used to be a high-level skier. And he said the first time he really learned about those affirmation type things or visualization, what's that word? There's a word for it that we always, I'll think about it later. But he would stand on the podium, close his eyes, pretend to put the gold medal around his neck, and imagine that feeling of winning, and it became real. That feeling became, setting an end goal. If you don't know what the feeling of winning is like, how are you going to win? He said the same thing, the houses he wanted. I mean, he has the luxury of being able to afford very nice houses, but he said he would look at that house like, that's the house I want. I'm going to be in that house.
Yep.
So it's a very powerful tool,
and
these
unfortunately,
affirmations.
these are all the things they don't teach us in school.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why, my personal sort of pet peeve and why I got involved with Ryerson and sort of coming back here is I think there's an opportunity to sort of instill some of these new thinking. Podcasts like this,
Big
the
time.
zones, and you guys tweeting and talking and sharing this kind of stuff. It's important
For
because
sure.
Events like Mindset.
the version has to change.
Yeah, it's like that book that was a game changer for me. One of many game changers. But Think and Grow Rich.
Oh yeah.
Yo,
I
Napoleon
didn't
Hill.
I didn't know I could be rich until I read that book. I just thought like, hey, this is destiny, man. You're gonna make $35,000 a year, call it a day. Things are great. And then I'm like, whoa, hold on. Like, I'm holding myself back? What are you talking about here? Then I started imagining myself getting rich, and then it started happening in the same way that you've described, right? Which brings us to this next round that we have over here. And we'll close off the podcast with this. This has been so much fun, man. This is a brand new segment that we've pioneered and we've created just for you, my friend.
Okay.
So we're going to ask you a series of rapid-fire questions.
Ooh.
Don't spend a lot of time thinking about them. Whatever comes to mind, the first answer, blurt it out.
Okay.
And if you give an offensive answer, we can go back and edit it, no problem. I have here for you 12 questions, and let's see what happens. I have no idea if this is going to work, if it's not going to work,
man.
but I think you're going to rock it.
Let's shoot.
You ready to go?
Okay.
Okay. Hakka food or Jamaican food?
Jamaican food.
Okay. The last book you read?
Can't Hurt Me.
By
David Goggins.
David Goggins.
Oh, I want to read that so bad.
So dope.
yeah.
Yeah.
3 podcasts you regularly listen to?
Ooh. Tony Robbins.
Nice.
Gary V. And then the guy from Charlemagne. 2 Idiots. Something.
Brilliant Idiots.
Yeah, Brilliant
Shout out
Idiots.
to Brilliant
Yeah.
Idiots.
Yeah.
Favorite rap album of all time?
Jay-Z. My fans are gonna hate this. Black Album's my favorite.
Ooh, interesting
Yeah.
choice. Okay. Best beef patty, Kennedy Station or Warden Station?
Ooh, Warden Station, hands down.
Okay.
Scarborough.
Hey, what's a game-changing book that everyone should read?
Alchemist.
The Alchemist. Wow.
Yeah, it's a game
Can't pronounce
changer.
his name.
I can't pronounce his name.
Paulo Coelho? I
Yeah.
don't know. Favorite rapper, dead or alive?
Ooh, Jay-Z.
Favorite lyricist, dead or alive?
Nas.
Ooh, okay. An app that you can't live without?
Ooh, app that I can't live without. YouTube.
Okay. Your favorite Desi Fest performer ever?
Layla B.
Interesting. Okay.
She's my daughter.
Gonna
Politically
say,
correct.
it's like, yeah. How do you get the party started? Reggae, soca, or dancehall?
Dancehall.
Last question. Mentor that changed your life?
Ooh, so many, man. So many.
Drop a few then.
My boy Dinesh, he's a great mentor to me. My wife is a great mentor to me. My parents, and I'm blanking on names, but there's not one person that can like pop up as the person.
Yeah.
I'm a mosaic of all of them, man.
Love it.
Yeah.
I think that's the title of the podcast right there, The Mosaic Man. Satish, you've bestowed the listeners and all 3 of us in this room right now with riches upon riches. I mean, we're so grateful for this. You've given us invaluable wisdom and insights. And to wrap things up, I want to turn the spotlight back on you and ask you, what is the best piece of advice that you've ever received? Because I have no doubt that the 3 of us in this room I've heard things from you. I know I've written down some things over here that I'm like, wow, that is some of the best advice I've ever received. What's the best advice that you have ever received?
The best advice was from a lady named Carol, and I was at a small little gig trying to figure out if I should start my own company or not. And the guys that were hired me, they said, if you leave us, you're never going to be successful. And I was tormented. And I remember talking to her, and I was in tears because I didn't want to like not have the job, but I also didn't want to stay there because, again, what if I stay there and I hate myself? And she just looked at me and said, just jump. What do you got to
jump?
Just do it.
What do you got to lose? Just
Yeah.
jump and figure it out. And I was like, okay, I'll jump and I'll figure it out. And I've been jumping and figuring things out, man.
Ever since.
Yeah.
Brother, that's fantastic. Thank you so much. And what's next for you? What are the adventures that the listeners and the viewers can follow along for the next couple of years as they subscribe to you online?
I'm working on my first book.
Okay. Can
I've
you share
always
some deets?
Well, similar to this,
World exclusive?
I'm really interested in just sharing some of this, stories that we talked about. I think there's a generation of young people that are getting an academic introduction to life, and I think they need more real stories, that real references, and I've got some good ones to share. I'm investing in smaller companies and helping founders excel. I'm just trying to be happy, man. You know, I've found a nice groove in life where I could work hard and play hard for the first time. I want to be an incredible father, and I'm focused on that. And you know, I've fully reconnected and like enjoy being a husband now, and not just a guy who comes home and like we have date nights and stuff. It's crazy. And so I think, you know, I finally got some good balance, but it took a very interesting road to get here, and I'm thankful that, you know, in my 40s I'm able to take the foot off the gas a little bit, and you know, not a lot of people have that luxury, but you know, I paid the price for it, and so yeah, I'm just sharing now.
That's amazing.
You know, if you follow me online, or if you want to start following me online, just get ready for, you know, doses of inspiration.
Oh, this is exciting! I can't wait. And where can people follow you online? And what's your handle?
Instagram has been my go-to choice.
Okay.
So Sats SATS.B.
Great content on there,
we'll put
guys.
that on the show notes
Really
as well.
good.
Yeah, and I have a website, bysatish.com. As
Great
a web
blog,
developer, as you said, I built my own website. Desi Fest is coming up, so we're really excited for our 13th year, and we're hoping to add more value. And so, you know, for the next 8 to 10 years, I just want to focus on just giving and see what happens, and then eventually I think I'll find a new obsessive project or work or client or something that'll get me back into that mode. But for now, I'm enjoying the difference in lifestyle.
All right, Satish Bala and Justin Venturo, JV. This was a blast. We'll do this
Thank you
again
guys
very
for
soon.
having me, and the gifts, Scarborough.
Hey, enjoy that, man. Looking forward to seeing that on the gram as well.
Yes, sir.
All right, listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. We're out.
Isn't Wi-Fi great? You can browse the web anywhere, coffee shops, airports, libraries. But using public Wi-Fi means that people can spy on you, and it's as easy as, yep, they can access your data at the touch of a button. Seriously, even your internet service provider can see every website you ever go to. Private internet access has got your back. How? Well, it's kind of nerdy, but to put it simply, spies and companies that track you don't like us one bit. We create an encrypted tunnel so that nobody can spy on you. We also provide IP cloaking, which frees you from geographic restrictions when you're traveling. Register today and disappear online, the way it was supposed to be.